to another episode of the Data Dialogues podcast. So today we are discussing 5 things you should know about Gen Z in 2025. And that's so you can better understand them, how to reach them, and all these fun data facts about them. So I am your host, Larissa Bedgood. I head marketing here at PGM. And with me today is Kristen Jones. She is the marketing manager at PGM. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, Larissa. I'm happy to be here and doing this episode with you.
Yeah, we always have so much fun. And I thought this was a really, really fun topic when we were discussing some new episodes and different ideas for data dialogues. I love the whole aspect of generational marketing, and especially with Gen Z. My daughter is Gen Z, and every now and then I'll ask her, it's like, so what do you think about ads? Or how do you purchase, do you like social influencers? So for me, it's really, really interesting. Anything generational is I think is pretty cool, but today it is Gen Z. We love our Gen Zers. So just kind of kicking this off with a couple of fun facts or quick facts. Gen Zers born after 1996. So the oldest are in their late 20s now. They make up nearly a quarter of the US population, which to me was pretty surprising. And actually, you know what, Kristen, I'm not sure if you know this, but is there a generation under Gen Z? I'm sure there is now. I don't know what that generation is.
Generation Alpha, Gen Alpha.
Oh, okay. So in a couple of years, we'll be doing a Gen Alpha podcast, I guess.
Yeah, I'd have to look into what the ages are, but my friend that's having kids, her kids are Gen Alpha, and they're about 4 years old right
now. Okay, yeah. So we're not quite ready for marketing spend on Gen Alpha, but interesting.
Yeah.
And then another fact. So by 2030, Gen Z's share of spending is expected to increase to 18.7%. And get this, that is $67.2 trillion. So a massive amount of spend. And of course that makes me laugh though, about the stat that everyone talks about with millennials not being able to buy houses because they're spending all their money on, coffee and Starbucks and avocado toast. And I'm like, okay, come on.
I feel personally attacked because I love both of those things.
And yeah. I still think it's like, I always chuckle on that one. I was like, wow, that is some very expensive. Well, granted, I could spend a pretty penny at Starbucks. Money, 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 money. But if it was as much as I would be spending on a house, then there's something I'm clearly looking at the wrong houses or buying coffee at the wrong Starbucks.
Right, exactly. But so we also found some fun facts about Gen Z here. So as everybody probably knows, they don't just use social media, they live on it. TikTok is their Google, YouTube is their teacher, and Instagram is their mood board. And I'll say this, I'm not Gen Z, I'm a millennial, but I'm more of on the cusp. I'm like a zillennial. So there's lots of things that I can relate to when we were doing this research on Gen Z. They prefer texting over talking. If your phone actually rings, it's probably not a Gen Zer. Just a little bit. One thing I can relate to them too about is like making appointments online instead of having to call. Like, I think everybody appreciates that, but like Gen Z, millennial, zillennials, I think we can all like really appreciate the convenience of being able to do that instead of having to like pick up the phone. So
I do have to include another group in there, Gen Zers, zillennials, and introverts, because let me tell you, when I can have like a good introverted moment, and if it could have been an online or a text or an email, like, yes, please. I do not pick up the phone willingly, unless it's I guess work related. But if I have like a call that I don't know coming in on my phone, like, no, you can go to voicemail. If it was important, text me back.
Yeah, if I don't recognize the number, I just don't answer.
Hmm.
But the one thing about my phone too is like I can screen calls. So like Google will like, I have a Google phone, so like Google will come on and like be who are you and what do you want? And like a lot of times they hang up because it's like a telemarketer or something like that. So
I mean, I don't know, there's certain companies that do still reach out via phone and especially
yeah,
B2B, believing in the power of cold calls and sales calls. Um, but as this generation ages even more so, I think that's going to be an important channel preference change that, email is already so popular. I do
yeah,
see direct mail even coming back. Obviously digital is the premium, but phones, it's as far as phone calls are going to just be phasing out more and more.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting to your point about direct mail. We had done a webinar I think a year ago or so with a company called Compra Media. Somebody from there spoke with us, and they were sharing how much Gen Z actually appreciates direct mail because it's like, unlike, seeing everything online, like how they're usually very immersed in their digital world, being able to have something tangible that's
Hmm.
like a personalized piece of direct mail feels really special, and they're very receptive to that. So I thought that that was a very interesting
Yeah.
thing that they had shared, and it makes sense. But just to add, well, I guess to like go off of that, another fun fact about Gen Z is they're multi-screeners. So phone in one hand, laptop in another, streaming in the background, attention is split. So your content better be good, right? Like we
Yeah.
are kind of like this generation is, multitasking. They might be shopping online for something while streaming a show in the background, and texting their friend. So to really stand out, I guess just kind of speaks to like what we're all about at PGM is making sure that your advertisement or your message is very personalized and reaching them where
Yeah.
they are, you know.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think that also talks to, I mean, we do hear like, shorter attention spans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really from, as you said, multitasking, doing so many different things, going from one screen to the other.
Right.
And there's so much digital bombardment today. There are so many different digital messages pinging us from every direction. Some of the older generations did not grow up that way. We had, one or two billboards,
Yeah.
but in all seriousness, it's such a increase in the amount of digital messaging that we're getting that you almost have to have a little bit of a shorter attention span to be very selective on what you're paying attention to. And if you are, to your point, this is actually one of the first generations to really expect everything to be personalized. If it's more generic, a one size fits all, I mean, we know that in marketing that you have to be very personalized, but in particular, for this generation, even more so, if something is just not tailored, it's that BS meter goes off and they're out of there. And I think that's just something that, again, as marketers need to be aware of, not just for, older generations, but, in particular, as you're trying to target this generation, make sure you lead with authenticity and personalization. Get that hook in right away.
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So, yeah, I guess we'll jump into like the five key characteristics of Gen Z in 2025.
Yeah, so we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive in this on each of these throughout the episode. But some of the things that we're going to touch base on are one, they're hitting life milestones. Super interesting, and how hitting some of these milestones really is kind of the pre-indicator for a lot of purchases and a lot of changes in lifestyle. They're big on saving and investing. They are keen to travel, same Z. Gaming is not just a pastime, so we'll chat a little bit about what that means. And they are embracing AI. Except my daughter, she feels like that's the Matrix, so she is not embracing AI, but it is a thing.
Yeah, no, I think some people are just a little bit slower to come around to it, and
Hmm.
it makes sense. It's definitely like once you start using it, I feel like you kind of get into a groove with it and all of
Yeah.
that. But yeah, some people are just slow AI adopters, and there's nothing wrong.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, so just to touch on, we'll cover each of these now in a little bit more depth. So, Gen Z is currently hitting life milestones. So, what does that mean? Since last year, they're starting families. There's been a 45% increase in Gen Z who say they're married, and a 23% rise in Gen Zers having children. So, they are no longer just, in high school. I mean, some of them still are, right? But like the older side of the generation is starting to really set down roots, start families, and I don't know, I guess they're growing up, right? Like as we all do.
Hmm.
So, and the other thing is, just to add on to that, they're advancing professionally. Now, 9% of Gen Z are decision makers at work, and that's up from 15% last year. So my
Wow.
question to you, Larissa, is like with Gen Z moving up the corporate ladder, how do you see that changing marketing? I mean, specifically too, like when I'm thinking about B2B brands, for like, for instance, PGM, how do you see that kind of affecting things?
There are some things that I do see brands needing to embrace more of, and that is absolutely video and podcast. We actually launched this podcast. Oh gosh, was it just 4 or 5 months ago now? I think.
Yes, in January of this year, January 2025.
Yeah, and this
Mhm.
is something that we've been wanting to do for a while. I think it's just such a great medium. Kristen is the one that really, really, pushed us to do that, because again, she's more, what did you call it? Not Gen Z, but not millennial. What was that word?
It's a cohort called Zillennials. Zillennials.
Zillennial. There you
Yeah.
go. So she was thinking very strategically there. And we know that, there's so much written text and in articles and so forth that people are just gravitating more so towards video and podcast. Uh, Being on those channels and especially podcasts is such a great medium to chat about your message and to engage personally with people, to show your personality. That's one thing that I try to do, Kristen tries to do, and all my guests do is you are who you are. Don't We don't practice the script word for word. We try to be very authentic and let our personality shine through. And so video and podcasts are such an exceptional medium for that. Here's a stat from Transistor, which is a podcast hosting platform that I thought was really interesting. And the stat is while YouTube dominates podcast listening overall, new research reveals that Gen Z strongly prefers Spotify, that's 56%, and overwhelmingly chooses audio only formats, 70%, 76% over video. So these findings really challenge some common assumptions about their podcast consumption habits. And it's interesting to see how things have evolved. I think, when podcasts first came out, it was really the business podcast for people driving into work. And
Right.
now it is really gravitated more towards some of those younger generations. And I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting stat too. Like we know the importance of video podcasting, but there's still like importance of the audio version, and it kind of makes
Hmm.
sense when they're multitasking, right? To our point earlier, right? They're multitaskers. So they're listening to a podcast, they're doing something else too. They're maybe shopping on their phone or something like that. So it makes sense. But yeah,
Hmm. Well, especially, considering that we do this as a video podcast, But then it's also when we record it, but it's, available as the audio podcast on Spotify and different streaming platforms.
Yeah.
I know personally when I'm listening to some of my favorite podcasts, I am cooking. So I love to cook and listen to my podcast. And I don't think I have a lot of time really to sit down and watch a video podcast.
Mhm.
Sometimes I will, but yeah, I do love listening to audio, especially in the car or when I'm cooking.
Absolutely.
So next characteristic, um, this generation is really focused on their future as far as financially proactively saving and investing. And one of the stats that we found was that 59% of Gen Z made a New Year's resolution for 2025 to save more money. And that really, really is outpacing what other generations had said when they were similarly asked the same question. So for you, Kristen, quick question. Did you make any New Year's resolutions for this year?
I did actually, and it's funny because it's kind of related to this. My goal was to like spend more or spend less money on coffee out, but it's been a struggle. I could probably be doing better. So that was one
Yeah.
of mine. Yeah,
Well, how about the avocado toast? Are you like,
I am blessed because I have an avocado tree in my backyard. So that
Oh,
that gives me avocados for the summertime. So yeah.
yes, I would like to, yeah, we both live in Florida. Um, I have been wanting to plant some different types of citrus. I have not done that yet. I did try my hand at some tomatoes out on my patio, and I first time, I guess, planting did not go so well. So I will try again. But yes,
Yeah,
I would love to do something like that.
yeah, definitely do it.
So another stat, so ahead of other generations when it comes to investing, there's been a 46% increase in 18 to 27-year-olds holding stocks and shares since 2017. And I think that again is, I mean, that's a massive increase.
Yeah,
And I just love that this generation is focusing on future financial stability. I know at when I was that age, I did not. And I learned much later, but just to see such an overwhelming percentage really, thinking through that, I think is pretty fascinating.
yeah.
Also over that same period, there's been a 29% drop in those without savings or investments.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like targeting Gen Z would would be great for financial brands right now. I mean, what
Hmm.
do you think, Larissa?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a really good point. If they're starting this young, they're really, really about, I think, forming some lifelong financial habits,
Hmm.
and potentially lifelong brand allegiance. This is such a great time for this generation to reach out to Gen Z. And I know, gosh, when I graduated from college, I went to Michigan State University. I got a credit card offer from Chase, and I stuck with them for at least 20 years. I think I still have a Amazon Chase card now, but you reach them early and they are apt to form those lifelong partnerships with you. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
All right, so let's get into the next point here. The next characteristic about Gen Z is they love to travel. Traveling is a priority for this generation. In late 2024, 34% of Gen Zers made New Year's resolutions to travel more in the new year. So, my question to you, Larissa, is do you have any upcoming trips that you're excited about this year?
Yes. So first trip I have is next month. I am going on a cruise with my daughter, her boyfriend, some family. my significant other, and we're going to, gosh, like St. Thomas,
Lovely.
uh, a couple of like the Virgin Islands, Dominican Republic. So really, really excited about that. Also planning for Italy next year, so I'm super excited about that as well. I've never been. And then work-wise, I'm excited to go to ITC, which is an insurance conference in Vegas. I think that is in October. So yeah, I have some pretty fun things planned. Oh, and actually, I think I'm going to try to do New Jersey, New York, for just a couple of days, maybe October timeframe.
Awesome. So just to explore further, with this love for traveling, they really value experiences when they're traveling, preferring destinations with beautiful photo ops, outdoor adventures, and unique cultural activities. Gen Z is a very experience driven generation. They value experiences a lot. So that's why I think traveling is such a big item for them. It's such
Hmm.
a characteristic is because they love those experiences. Experiences probably matter more to them than like a product, right? Um,
Right.
and says here too, like between quarter 3 of 2020 and quarter 3 of 2024, international travel plans rose by 17% among Gen Zers.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah, that's especially international travel plans. That's a big spike there, I think.
absolutely.
So, do you have any countries that are on your bucket list to travel?
Oh, so many. Like Japan, Mexico, Greece, Sweden, so many places. And I
Yeah.
know for you, you've been to like Ireland, and you just said you're going to go to Italy. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited there, but yeah, there's so many that I would love to see. I think Japan is another hot spot
Yeah,
for me. I think this sounds, I've heard so many great things about it.
absolutely. It's like a must see place to go.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
beautiful, so much
absolutely.
interesting culture. Yeah. So, another key characteristic is gaming is not just a pastime with this generation. So, Gen Z loves their games. They're 33% more likely than the average gamer to play for social interaction and 27% more likely to play for skill development. So, they enjoy watching gaming content such as gameplay, that's 53%, 44% comedic gaming videos, and their favorite streamers or content creators at 43%. So it's not
Ooh.
even just like playing games, right? Like they also just love consuming content about gaming and interacting with other gamers in a social setting online. So that's very interesting. And then
Yeah, absolutely.
to explore further, it says according to a recent study, 52% of Gen Z gamers reported that they would like to make money in the metaverse. In fact, they would be willing to spend more time playing if it meant making more money. So I thought that was also very interesting, and it just makes me think about like Twitch streamers and this YouTube gamers like with the channels and stuff. I know my husband,
Hmm.
he's the same age as me, and he loves to watch that kind of content. It's not just playing games for him. He loves to like watch other people play games, and so I feel like that tracks. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so Larissa, do you have any games that you like to play?
Yeah, so I love actually I'm picking up my phone right now. What is it called? Wordscapes. Yes. So Wordscapes is just like a fun little puzzle game where you have to, unscramble letters. And so yeah, like of course, in 20 minutes I can see if my frog is done eating his treat so I can get more points. Don't do the paid version of my game. I get the one that's ad supported. So I get really hyper targeted ads on my gaming platform based on my browsing history, things I've looked up in Amazon or what have you. And so I have clicked, probably that is the biggest place that I will click on ads. is when I'm gaming. I don't pay as much attention to maybe an ad that I see on Google or, CTV sometimes. But for me, I will definitely click on gaming ads. So I think that's like something that if you are not in those platforms, something really, really to think about, because it's not just for Gen Z. I mean, it's really for targeting any generation.
This last one here, Larissa, I know that this is an interesting one for you because you love AI.
Yeah. And at work, here's a stat: 93% of Gen Z leaders use 2 or more AI tools every week. So it's really a generation that's very comfortable, I think, using AI. As marketers, and of course many other industries, but I know you and I, Kristen, use AI regularly.
Right.
In as far as content creation and so forth. But Gen Z, they're using it also in the buyer journey. So over half say they would use AI for price comparisons. And that is not something that I've necessarily thought about doing. Like, that's a pretty innovative way to use AI. Also, they use it for shopping support. So 2 in 5 say they would use AI for shopping support. Again, just some innovative use cases where, I'm thinking more along the lines of content creation for marketing and so forth. They're really, some innovative ways that Gen Z is embracing it as consumers throughout the purchase cycle. So what about you, Kristen? Are you using AI to help you shop or research products?
I am actually. So I have the Gemini app on my phone, and I basically use that now instead of Googling. It's just like when I want the information I want it fast. And perfect example is recently I've been doing more with my like landscaping and gardening. So I was using it to research what products I needed, and what tools I would need for a project I was doing. AI
Yeah, I
influencing the buyer journey now. It's not just like
right.
traditional Google search, like people are using AI.
I love all these cool stats. I think we have another podcast that we'll be recording that kind of delves into Gen Zers a little bit more and maybe some marketing use cases. But for this episode, it is a wrap. Lots of interesting data we went over today. And remember, if you are looking for any data-driven solutions for your targeting, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Data Dialogues. So stay data-driven, stay creative, and we'll see you next time. Thanks all.